Every time a relatively unknown car company comes out with a new car, I'm always expecting the design to be a little amateurish and maybe a little melted cheese with some weird proportions and stuff like that. This is the Mullen 5 RS. I don't know if you've heard of this company before. I thought I never heard of it before, but then I remember seeing a sports car that they had a while back that was actually a Chinese car, and it looked very Chinese as well, that they rebranded into a Mullen and made it into an American car. But now we have this Mullen 5 RS, which is honestly a pretty interesting design. And I'm impressed with this design and what Mullen is doing here, because I think it's very hard as a new company to come out with a new car and create a identity and a soul for your car. I think the brand that's done that the best is Genesis, which is a very young brand, and they have one of the strongest brand identities in the industry. So what we're gonna do in this video is have a look at what this car is, what this company is, and then I'm going to show you this design from front, side, rear, and also the interior, and talk about what I like and sort of think can be made a little bit different in this design. First of all, let's have a look at what this company actually is. I was interested in this myself to see where Mullen is coming from. So Mullen is a Southern California-based company that owns and partners with several synergistic businesses, all working towards the same goal of creating clean and scalable electric vehicles. And here I guess you can see the development of the logo itself. I'm assuming that this is the latest version of the logo, and this is the beginning of Mullen. So have a look at this Coda Automotive from, what is this, 2009. The award-winning company's all-electric sedan came out with a range of 88 miles back in 2009. And I guess that's a pretty cool achievement, because this was the only company, in addition to Tesla, there was only two certified EV companies selling EVs at that time. So they've been around for a while here. And here you have the Mullen GT. So this is back in 2002. And when you look at this design, this is very, very melted cheesy. So it fits right into that car design era of early 2000s, because I don't think I've ever seen a car that represent melted cheese more than this. I mean, just have a look at the curvature here and the softness all over this design. But it's still cool, again, that they managed to put cars like this out for way back in the day, over 20 years ago. And this was the first electric supercar in the market back in 2007. So as you can see, Mullen has actually been around for a while. I guess they just recently started to find their own way, specifically when it comes to design. So let's have a look at what this Mullen 5 RS is all about from this Car Scoops article. I'm going to link this, as always, down in the description. So this is a super crossover with 200 miles an hour top speed and 1,000 horsepower in this pretty beautiful package. It doesn't look like an EV. It definitely looks like it could be an internal combustion hiding under here, with intriguing design, big performance claims, and a production set for late 2025. So this is pretty much production ready. And I want to show you the interior, because I think interiors is also one of these very difficult, challenging pieces that new car companies need to figure out. And I think Mullen has done a fantastic job here again, just designing this interior and making it at least look very high quality when you look at the interior. So we're going to do that in a second. Equipped with dual motors residing at the front and rear axles, the 5RS boasts a staggering 1,000 horsepower. 1,000 horsepower in the EV. Today, it feels like maybe that is becoming the norm. I don't know. We're just pumping out these crazy numbers these days. 850 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds in what looks to be almost like a Ford Focus package. I think this is probably a little bit bigger than a Ford Focus. The automaker promises that its crossover will be capable of reaching a top speed of 200 miles per hour, 322 kilometers per hour, or even higher. Now, the problem with that is when you go that fast in an EV, as you know, it's going to drain the battery extremely quick, but Mullen has a solution for that. So you have Porsche Taycan style 2-speed gearbox as well. When it comes to the design, the model has a big wing at the back, in addition to a spoiler where the rear window meets the body. Another intriguing design cue is the duct in the front. So this is actually a 488 Pista style wing. So this front end acts as an internal wing or downforce piece in the front end. I think that's very cool and something pretty advanced for a company that we really haven't heard about that much. And to ensure that it accelerates consistently, Mullen says that it's designed in ultra performance racetrack mode. I love the name. Ultra performance racetrack. It can only mean one thing, and this adjusts settings in the throttle mapping, the powertrain, the battery cooling, the dampers, and the steering feel as well. Again, pretty advanced stuff for a company of this size. The 5RS gets 6 piston Brembo brakes up front with carbon ceramic discs. Now you do have the stagger setup of the wheels. You have 21-inch wheels in the rear and 20s in the front. If you watch my videos before, BMW is doing this with every single M model these days, and I just want to have the same size all around. Even if it means going down to 20s, you rather not have 21s in the rear. Just put 21s or 20s all around the car. It just looks better. It makes it less of a Hot Wheel design. Now here is the interior. Just have a look at how beautiful this interior is. I love the ambient orange lighting going well, in combination with the exterior design. We do have 2 big screens here, which is fine. I mean, that's what we get today. We have a nicely designed steering wheel. Look at all the different materials and design features, radiuses and curvatures that we have here. I mean, compare this. I always, take Tesla Model 3. Yes, they updated the steering wheel recently, but the first generation that was in production up in 2023 just looked very plain. And this is also a pretty new company here, even newer than Tesla. And I think this interior looks so much more inviting than a lot of other EVs today that's been around for a while. It's equipped with a 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack that Mullen hopes will get it up to 300 miles. You will not get 300 miles if you're going 200 miles per hour. You have 800 volt architecture that allows it to go from 0 to 80% in about 20 minutes, which is not bad. I think this is starting to become also the standard now, 800 volt architecture. It also has an integrated infotainment system, an AI-based personal assistant called Persona, facial recognition technology, and level 2 driver assistance tech. So a lot of new tech coming into this car. Facial recognition is located on the B pillar, I do believe, in this car, just like on the Genesis, what's that called, the EV that I reviewed a while back. Also had the facial recognition like a phone. You just put your face, stare at the B pillar, and will open up the door. It's pretty weird. Leather and Alcantara trimmed seats have been that have carbon fiber backs, looking nice, and the weight comes in at over 5,000 pounds for this car, and that is again the problems with EVs. There's just no way around adding a lot of weight to the EV since we have all the battery packs. So production of the 5RS is expected to start in late 2025 with sales in 2026. So let's jump in to Photoshop and let's dissect this design. Now, the thing about this, as I said, I think they've managed to create a pretty strong identity for this car. I mean, it's a very young company. They've been around for a while, but as you know, we haven't really heard a lot about the cars that Mullen is putting out. So having this design, I think the front end reminds me a lot of the SF90, with this wing cutting into these lights, and then the lights themselves kind of wrapping around on both the top part and the lower part of this integrated wing. Very much SF90 to me. That's not a bad thing. However, the one thing that I would like to change here is this section. I'm not sure how I would like to change this, but I do think that this just looks, if you look at the overall design here, we have a lot of organic shapes, a lot of curvature, smooth surfacing in intersecting with some sharp lines all over this front end. And then this has this static vibe to it. It looks like just a rectangle that sits very statically in the front end. But as I said before, this is actually the functional air duct. So you have air flowing in here, then coming up here on the hood and creating or pushing the front end down. So you probably need something like that if you're going 200 miles an hour. Overall, I do think I like the front end, but I do think maybe it's a little bit too much going on in the front end, because it doesn't look this busy in the rear. And I want to have that same feeling that we have in the rear, with a little less lines, more of a chilled out design. I want to have that same feeling in the front end. So looking at the side view, and this is probably my favorite view, or the rear view is really beautiful as well in this case. We have the Toyota Camry line down here, cutting into the body. up like this, and then sort of has a connection to the taillight. I do wish we did have a clear connection to the corner, because if we just draw this line out, it's not going to have that straight connection to the very corner. It's going to hit a little bit lower than that. It's just a small detail. Then you have this big wing up here that looks like an aftermarket piece. But again, if you're going to go 200 miles an hour in an EV like this, you probably need more downforce than you think. I do like these wheels. These are not your typical EV wheels, because look at this. We can actually see the disc behind here, the big Brembo brake calipers and discs back there. Carbon ceramics, I do believe you had in this car. And again, the overall proportions here definitely looks like an internal combustion car, because we don't even have the rear wheel like we have in the Ioniq 5, for example, where it kind of looks like an internal combustion engine. But what gives the Ioniq 5 away is the positioning of the rear axle, which sits way too far this way. Creates a little bit of a weird proportions on the Ioniq 5, but we don't have that here. We still have a pretty decent overhang, internal combustion style overhang in the rear end, and we also have that in the front here. So this looks like it could definitely house a V6 or maybe an inline 4 here, hybrid setup. It would be pretty cool to see. I also like that we have a very thin line of the body color wrapping around the greenhouse, while the rest of the greenhouse and the roof is all black. Creates less weight up top and make it feel a little bit more nimble. In addition to this section down here that is blacked out, also carves out some of this volume of this design. Looking at the rear end, and honestly, I take that back. I do think this is by far my favorite view of this car. I love this design. It's such a beautiful design with this wing here, a ducktail. You have the wing up top as well, so a dual wing action. And you also have a very nicely designed graphics here, with Mullen being lit up here in the center. We don't have a full light bar stretching all the way across, but we do have the graphics or a housing stretching across the entire length of the rear end. And look at these taillights, very cool design. You have these strips, and what makes this, even though they are the same thickness, what makes it a little bit more dynamic is that it cuts off like this. So if you just sketch out the outline of these taillights, that is what brings in this dynamic feeling to this taillights, in addition to the housing of it. Not sure if this is a functional air vent. It probably is, I would assume. And further down, we do have the same styling. This is what I like about this company, that they think about the design from a 360 view of this car. We have the same type of feeling down here in the diffuser. If we go back to the front end, you have the same styling here with these lines in the bottom, now coming back in the rear end. However, this is what I'm talking about. This rear end looks so much cleaner than the front. The front looks too busy in contrast to the rear end. So I want to have a bit more of this vibe in the front as well, where you have cleaner lines and not a lot of lines sticking up here like GR Corolla, for example, that, by the way, does that in a very good way. But I just want to have a much cleaner front end, similar to what we have in the rear. And last but not least, this interior. I am almost blown away by how good this interior looks for a car company of this size. I'm not sure if this car is also, I could be completely off track here. This might be a Chinese car that they imported and rebranded like they did with their sports car, but I didn't see that anywhere. I didn't read about that, because this interior looks just, it almost feels like it's too good for a company this size to create an interior this beautiful, and that it has to be some bigger manufacturer that made, you know, the basics for it, and then they just rebranded it. But I'm not sure. Maybe it is a in-house work from Mullen, this design. We have two screens. They look to be probably 12.3 inches. And the thing is here, look down here, we do have some physical buttons for the climate, for the gearbox at least, or not the gearbox, but the drive modes. But it looks like we still have the climate control settings integrated in the bottom part of the screen. At least I do believe these don't go anywhere. They're always static down here, so you can always easily access them. But the steering wheel is a beautiful steering wheel, cool design, unique design with these angles here cutting into the side spokes and creating a bit more interesting styles and lines for the steering wheel, so you have something to analyze while you're driving the car, and not just a boring old static looking steering wheel. So overall, fantastic work by Mullen. I'm interested in hearing your opinion on this car, because to me this is the EVs that I want to see more of. Not some crazy bubble, just a boring design, some more sporty designs that has a lot more personality, and I do think this Mullen 5 RS fits into that category.